Welcome back to Daybreak. Of course, we continue the conversation about the new curriculum with the latest that the candidates that will be leaving grade 6 will be proceeding to the first level of secondary school without an exam. So there are several questions on how the transition will be done, who will be selected to which school, where those schools will be. We'll be seeking answers from one Jacqueline Onyango from the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. But before that, we know that there's a report that was released by the Kenya National Union of Teachers towards the end of the week, and they call it a research that was conducted by people they commissioned. Let's just take a look at what they are saying that of concern is from their findings. And the first one is that they are still opposed to the competency-based curriculum because they find that there's no research that justifies the introduction of CBC, that CBC ignores cognitive abilities of learners, such that with 844 currently it can teach you how to analyze, evaluate issues and synthesize complex issues, but this competency-based curriculum they feel does not. CBC has not improved teacher delivery. This is based on a study they conducted on the piloting of the curriculum. Then schools lack learning technologies. The CBC is not a product of a commission, and the CBC is a foreign agenda. CBC won't improve education in Kenya. That's what the report says. And then finally, in terms of their recommendations, they said that the CBC implementation should be discontinued, that the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, must seek consensus, and that mother tongue must be used at a lower primary level if it is to go ahead and implement the idea that local languages can be used in learning. But there are some people that spoke at the conference, including one Rajani Rakesh, who is an educationist in Tanzania. He was talking about listening to what the Kenya National Union of Teachers are saying. Let's just listen in.
Very much hope that the concerns the Kenya National Union of Teachers is raising will be listened to seriously and deeply.
We have had public participation at the highest level, where we have had 47 different dialogues which were open to the general public without control. Inputs were taken, Your Excellency, and nobody should say that he or she has been gagged.
Usije sasa tuanze kusema hakuna classroom, watoto wako chini ya miti. Afadhali mtoto awe chini ya miti na kitabu na kalamu na mwalimu, badala ya awe anatembea barabara za Nairobi na chupa ya glue kwa mapua.
So, Dr. Wandia Njoya, so we are where we are. I mean, CBC is gone and it's going. What do you think would be a solution to cure the challenges that you find in the process of arriving at this curriculum?
CBC is not going. You see, what is going to happen is what happened with 844. Because of the challenges that the teachers faced in the classroom, they started to adjust, and eventually, even the ministry had to now say we are going to reduce the number of subjects, etc. What is going to happen is that the teachers will start teaching the way they know and what makes sense to them. And because KICD is not there to hold their hands, which is actually what they wanted all along, because KICD cannot be in every classroom holding hands, teachers are going to adjust. So until we see at the end of maybe one cycle what is happening, everybody will just be doing what they know best.
Is there a solution in the meantime?
That's the solution. Everybody will just have to do what they know best.
That's what I'm asking. Right now, is there anything that can be done to correct so that you don't wait for so long to fix a problem?
The problem has to continue, but this is what needs to be done in the meantime, while the teachers just manage. What needs to be done is that the government needs to sit down with thinkers and educators and tell us why CBC. Because this is the question they have refused to answer since 2017. Think of it this way, which is what I was saying. If you say, I'm going to buy you a car, and I tell you the needs that I have, and then you bring me a Mercedes instead of a Nissan, and I ask you, why did you buy a Mercedes when a Nissan could have done better for me? Then you have to answer that question. We are not being told why CBC was the way to address the problems that were identified in all these reports that we are, being given.
From where you sit, the CBC is not a tailored system that is going to tailored to solve Kenyan problems and not just a copy-paste.
It's not going to solve the problems that people said they were trying to solve. Now, for example, one of the biggest issues in the system is equity. How do we, this thing of somebody asked, a viewer asked about Alliance and the Makoko. Yeah. So how do we introduce equity in the system so that going to Alliance isn't such a privilege, while going to Makoko means that you don't get the networks and the results and all that? That was a question we needed to answer. But now we are being told CBC is going to solve that problem. So I don't think so. So what I've been disputing is the problems that Kenyans said were with the system are not addressed by CBC. That's the basic argument
it's not a system
I'm making.
that it's not an education system tailored for Kenya's solutions, in short.
No, it isn't, because most of Kenya's problems that are facing the education system are economic. Like employment is an economic problem. You cannot solve that by changing the curriculum.
Okay. So speaking of inequality, speaking as well as the issue of funding Alliance versus that other school, as well, yes. President Uhuru Kenyatta actually addressed it. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Sasa kama mtu amebarikiwa kuwa carpenter ambaye ndio atakuwa mjenzi wa manyumba kubwa kubwa Kenya hii, kwa nini wewe mzazi umlazimishe ati wewe utakuwa daktari? Na huyu mtoto hata akiona site ya damu ya mbuzi anasirai, lakini wewe unamwambia wewe utakuwa daktari. Ukiangalia ule Steve Jobs wa Apple, ukiangalia huyu wa Microsoft, sijui anaitwa nani, Gates, huyu hakuna mmoja wao alienda university. Lakini wakija hapa unaona maprofesa wanakimbia kushika mkono tu, hata sio hata sisi marais jameni, ukiambiwa ati wanakuja unaanza kujivaa sawa sawa na kusoma uone ni nini yaweza kukuangukia huko katikati.
So, first of all, you know, Mark Zuckerberg actually did graduate. He just graduated later on. Yeah.
Well, but he doesn't mention him. He just talks about Microsoft.
And Bill Gates actually, if you look at the university he went, these are people who dropped from Harvard, the likes of Yale.
But without losing the point in his sentiments that are quite comical, you were asking why CBC, and he has sort of tried to explain that in that you may now require more of competencies than comprehension that we know of. We have so many job losses. I mean, many Kenyans without a job, yet they have gone through the system. Do you think CBC can respond to that question?
In fact, actually, that's what the NAT is saying. One of the points they are making. What the president is talking about is not correct, because first of all, we have not determined that people don't want to become carpenters and plumbers because of the way they are educated. It's other things. It's money. Can people afford to take their kids to Makini, like where she was teaching? Can we afford to take our kids to Makini if we are carpenters and plumbers? And then, as Kenyans have been saying, why are you deciding that people are not plumbers because of the school system when very few people have access to tapped water? So there is actually no need for plumbers. So the issues that we are trying to solve with education cannot be solved in the classroom. They have to be solved in the economy. The economy has to give fundis access to a good standard of life, and that is not happening right now. And you cannot blame them for looking at someone like me, who goes all the way to university, and comparing their lifestyle and saying, even if I become a fundi, I'm not going to be able to take my kids to Makini. Not that I can, but I won't be able to take my kids to Makini. I won't be able to drive a car. Our public transport is a mess. Our hospitals are a mess. So we are not being realistic. There are so many socio-economic problems that Kenyans are facing that cannot be solved by tinkering around with what is taught in the classroom. And I think it's wrong to promise Kenyans that CBC will solve everything. It will not. not.
Speaker, from where you sit, the CBC, this specific education system, was it made just for the high-end Kenyans? What happens to the millions of children who are sitting under trees, and that's how they attain their education through hardships, the ones President Uhuru Kenyatta has just addressed as well?
Well, let me say this. The day we decided to have private school vis-a-vis public schools was the beginning of Kenya ending what we used to say, a poor will sit with a rich on merit in a classroom. The same way, Mwalimu is now DESTA. We will say it's for the rich. If you now start putting and leave our public universities, you know? So, the moment you are a parent and you have, and that is one thing I hope now the education system will come clear. Because why would you take your child in a private school and then you want to go to Alliance? Alliance is a public school. It's for children in public. And that is some of the things we did wrong. To allow children from private schools to come, compete with the rest on the same grade, yet you have gone through a system where you have been given, and I'll say even the McKinney we have battered you and now we've put you in a system. And then you come to a child who is coming from Homa Bay, who has a grade when you look at, you're thinking is not the brightest, is the brightest child. A child from Northeastern with a C+ from that high school is the brightest child than even this one of Alliance. Let me be honest. If we now want to solve education in Kenya and come to reality that we messed, and that's why I said, there is a place we decided to mess. The same way we messed with health. You decided Kenyatta is not the best, but that is where the brains of Kenya went, and they are the best doctors. But then you bring in private hospital and you think that is the best. That is why we are in the same problem.
Cynthia,
so we must accept as Kenyans that let us look at CBC and see whether we can go back to a merit whether you are from a private or whatever, and we have to rethink of this private also, if we want to be serious, so that when we are saying Mahoho and Alliance, it becomes a reality that when I'm coming from Malava Primary School, I'm able to walk in Alliance with my head high because that is where my grade has taken me.
Cynthia, do you agree
and
with
I think,
the speaker?
Let me just finish. What Matiang'i was trying to show us, which again we decided to hide ourselves, is look, you cannot have a school where you have 100 A's. No, no. And what the president is trying to say is you cannot force your child to be a doctor when indeed you know in the heart the grades is pushed grades where he's not a doctor. That is why when you come now to Nairobi University, you finish 6 years, you repeat, you are not able to graduate because you went in a wrong way. I think that is what the president is trying to say. If I'm a carpenter, let the parent appreciate. This is where my child grades are. And I cannot push. That is what God has given. And God knows where he will go, whether with those grades, you will be a carpenter, you will be a plumber. We need all of them. But how do we ensure this child is proud to be what he or she is without being forced by a parent to be a lawyer when you know very well the grades are not to be a lawyer?
Speaker, Cynthia, do you agree with the speaker, especially when it comes to the issue of whether CBC is mostly for high-end income individuals, mostly in the urban areas, as opposed to our people who are also in rural areas and learning under trees?
Oh, we've heard from Dr. the why competence-based curriculum and why government. So I just want you to allow me to just read from our NAT representative, Busia County. Teacher Meshach is actually asking that tell them which means is the government going to use to send students to junior secondary now that there are no exams? That question is still coming up. National exams for Standard 3 is a disaster. Class 3 at Makini Primary School is not Class 3 at Busija. Schools are not the same, and I think that's the example that you were giving. And then the government is really concentrating on CBC and has not sent a single book for Standard 4 and Standard 5. Once you pass this competency in Standard 3, okay, it's not an exam or whatever you're examining, not examining or giving, then is there facilities that have been provided in Standard 3, Standard 4, Standard 5, Standard 6, as you make that transition? These are concerns really coming from the ground, and that's my response, really.
Okay, and I want you to respond this way, because, well, first of all, Meshach, I don't think he's right in saying that there's a national examination at grade 3. I believe you're calling it an assessment, and I think there was a press conference by Kenya National Examinations Council last week when they were talking about the assessment, but there are questions on how that will be done. So as you transition to that, please respond to that, exactly how it will be done. And then number 2, when you said that you leave grade 6 and join grade 7, tell us how that selection will be done, because Kenyans are used to Form 1 selection after KCPE results, then you choose who goes where. So how do you determine that? And in the domiciling of schools at the secondary level, we don't have sufficient capacity at the current secondary institutions. So how do you exactly do that?
Thank you very much. But let me just begin from indicating that we already have schools in place at the moment. A curriculum is already ongoing. The 844 curriculum is going on. The fact that we are bringing in CBC does not mean that we'll negate all that infrastructure and all that is in place. And so we will build on whatever is already there. And yes, there are those disparities where you have the schools having different facilities. Yes, that is a problem that has to be dealt with. But the CBC is coming in already in a ground that is already there. And education is going on. So we may not be the ones to answer all the questions. The challenge with us as KICD is that we start the curriculum, and so all the questions are poured on us. But we have various structures in the ministry, and everybody knows the part that they are supposed to play. Now, let me come back to the area of assessment. Yes, we are saying that at grade 3, we are going to have an assessment of the learners. Now, this is not an exam. What this is, you see, we have planned what the children are supposed to learn up to that point. So basically what we are checking is, where are you? Based on the standards that we expect for a grade 3. And remember, we are saying that we want as much as possible for a child to move according to their ability. So the teacher, just the way they have progress records of learners now, the teacher is keeping the records of whichever child they have. So I know that Jackie is at a higher level than Mary is at a higher level, and that is normal in a classroom. And so at the point when we are doing that assessment in grade 3, we are doing that because this is a transition into a next level, which is our lower primary, our upper primary. So as you're moving to grade 4, do you have the basic requirements or the basic standards for grade 3? If you don't have, as I move into grade 4, because I have my portfolio, the teacher picks me up from that point. And we don't expect at any given time that all the children will be on the on the same level. That doesn't happen. Not in the 844, and so we don't expect it in the CBC. Now, when we are looking at the next level of transition, I may not be able to give the answers now, because that is why a task force has been set. One of the critical TORs, terms of reference for that task force, was to be able to advise where would be the best place for the grade 7 to 9. Would it be in primary school or would it be in secondary school? They have given the guidance that this would be in secondary school, and that is why the president made the announcement he did. So going forth from there, they are going to tell us what the specifics are. Now, as they are talking about those specifics, it is not them as individuals who are making those decisions. They are working with all the institutions that are related to that. So if it is issues of assessment, the Kenya National Examination is there. If it is issues of infrastructure, there are various directorates in the ministry that are handling that. And that is why that task force is a large group of people, and they are able to get information based on what it is they are expected to do. So we expect that the report they will be giving will actually be covering all the TORs that they were given. Why? Because as KICD, we may not be able to answer those questions. We have our mandate, and our mandate is curriculum. Now, as I get back to curriculum, allow me to say that, you see, curriculum is supposed to meet the demands of society. When we did the needs assessment in 2009, and I think the speaker has also indicated that there is a disconnect between what a student who is coming out of the system is able to do with what we expect. So if the child is not even able to write the letter of application that they're supposed to write, then something went wrong down the line. So as curriculum developers, we ask ourselves, where could the challenge be? Definitely, one of the biggest challenges has been our emphasis on exams. So children are just taken through rote learning. There is no time for them to practice. If we look at the 844 system, and I happened to be in KICD when we were doing the review in 2002, and that was a second review. And Kenyans were saying this work is too much, so we don't want our children to be able to carry on this load. So we removed most of the practical areas. So the curriculum is largely theoretical. But what we are saying here is, beyond that curriculum being theoretical, we are in a different era where we are saying children need to actually learn to find information, not to be told. And you don't even need to wait, because when you go to class now, children even in the rural, and I'm sorry that we keep talking about this urban as though the children in rural don't learn. I happen to learn in the rural areas.
All right.
And at the end of the day, as you're playing, there is so much you gather that you can come and tell your teacher at the following day. So that is what we want to enhance. Build their capacities so that as they grow, this is a continued thing and not wait to be told all the time.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline Onyango, the Senior Deputy Director at the KICD. I want us to take a look at what Kenyans have been saying as we wind up on Twitter as well as on SMS line at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag to use is Daybreak. What have you been saying? If you can take a look at Elisha. Where does CBC leave boarding schools now that parents have been assigned a role by the system? Good question.
Eric, you say CBC is bound to fail if you ignore the teachers' input. Not as a representative of teachers being manhandled is a show of dictatorship in implementing CBC.
Okay, David 1. Is it too late to have all-inclusive ratifications to achieve skill revolution underpinned by technology, innovations and science as we all aspire?
Okay. Isaac, you ask, so what will be the criteria that will be used to bridge the class 6 students to the other higher level in that there will be no national exam? I believe Jacqueline has addressed that.
Will it be online?
Then Dennis.
Now parents are asking so that we use the way of...
Let's finish on this. Dennis says that they had said grade 3
That's
will
why
sit...
they should not tell
Excuse me. will sit for national examination. Then they said it's not a national exam, it's just assessment. Then they said only grade 6 will sit for national exam. No president says no national... I mean, well, so many queries in as far as how this will be done. So quite a lot of work to be done with the KICD in terms of informing the populace.
Still sticking to Twitter.
That's SMS.
Oh, let's take a look at SMS. 22422 is our SMS line. You don't say who you are. You say, I'm a high school teacher and I can imagine how it would be hectic to handle two systems and expect different quality outcomes at the same time. Take politics away from education. CBC will fail on arrival. Take it to the bank.
Well, that's a teacher. I don't know which bank though. Calvin, when someone doesn't want to do something, they will give funny excuses and complain about all the challenges even before they try doing it. Well, quite varied opinion. And then you don't leave your name? You
say, I don't understand this CBC. How can you allow a child to transition if a certain competence has not been attained?
You also don't leave your name. Unless teachers are listened to, CBC is going nowhere. They forced T-PAD on them. Have you ever seen any improvement? We are rushing something good. Take care. We might cry in future.
Okay. Hillary on SMS, good morning. You say the ministry can chest thump, but as long as teachers in schools are not well equipped in readiness for CBC, it is dead on arrival. As it is, teachers have reverted back to the previous system. In any case, 8442 has had inclusions of the core curriculum activities. Why are we shoving CBC down the throats?
That's a teacher. And then this is who on SMS line? Michael Woyugi from Kibera. Not all classes will move to the new system in a year. Only class 1 to class 3 will start. The other classes will go with their old system until they finish their education. That is what happened when 844 system started. So you can see a quite varied opinion on this topic, but of course, a lot to be done by the task force that you talk about that have a term that expires in June next year. We hope that all stakeholders can be brought on board, including the views from Dr. Wandia Njoya and the Kenya National Union of Teachers and all those people involved for the betterment of this country. But now, thank you so much, Beatrice Lachi, Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly.
Thank you. Hopefully parents are not asking, so that again we start rigging our children into standard 6. You know that is the problem with Kenya.
Onyango, the Senior Deputy Director at the KICD, Cynthia Mutere, from the Women League of Fort Kenya. Thank you so much for making time.
And maybe that's something that needs to be addressed. Schools that community has started and they come up to maybe class 3. Who's going to be addressing those questions? Just a take home for the...
Okay, unfortunately we're out of time. And then Dr. Wandia Njoya, lecturer at the university, at Bethesda University, thank you so much for making time for us on Daybreak. Up next is an entertainment segment with Willis Raburu. Will be bringing us the latest in as far as that front is concerned. Stay tuned.